Hey, did I tell you I'm going to go meet my daughter? I haven't seen my daughter. I'm getting out this month. Yeah, she's going to be 8 years old. Did I tell you I'm a Donde está la biblioteca? I learned Spanish in prison.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? If you've ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I'm one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me is my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
Each week, we take a look back in time to decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, or want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie takes to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV. We review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. Find all the information at past episodes at shatpod.com/TV. And finally, if you would like to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatpod.com/Twitch, and our YouTube channel where we play video games, host watch parties, and edit this podcast live. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing tonight?
Gene, tonight's film's got me very excited. One of our great listeners, Frank Fall, who legendarily commissioned Rad, leaves some great voicemails, and he has a knack for picking films that are just right. And tonight covers a bunch of bases. We got two big stars from the 80s and 90s all the way up to today, and a film that is long overdue. So I think both of us were very excited when Frank wrote in and asked us to go back to 1997 and review the American science fiction action classic, Face Off.
I'm Castor Troy. Anyway, I'm calling about Face Off. It's a good movie. I hadn't watched it in a while, so I rewatched it. It's one that's got Gina Gershon in it, super hot. It's a good story. It's ridiculous. Holds up pretty well, I think. It's just some good old-fashioned family fun. And nothing says love like grabbing some butt cheeks and wiping your hand on her face. Maybe not in that order. Maybe that was a little off-putting. But that's what the movie's all about. Really excited to see what y'all think. I'm going to say 2 wipes or less. Better than Tango and Cash. It's not as nostalgic as Rad, but it's good. I think it's 2 wipes. 2 or less. And more than anything, I can't wait for Delta Force. That's coming up. That's a big one. That's a 0 wiper. So I will talk to you later. Can't wait to see what you think about it. Appreciate all you do.
And then Frank wrote in, I guess he had some second thoughts, and he said, looking at the rankings, the voicemail, I said, 2 wipes, I'll predict 2.5. Fun movie, a lot of questions at the end. But the technology looks pretty good. To be nearly 30 years old, 3D printed ears, not bad. Typical 90s explosion movie. Thank you all, Delta Force. So he thinks 2.5. That was his adjustment.
Yeah, Frank, I got to tell you that I kept thinking of you every time things went over the top, which happened quite a bit. Big D, Frank in his voicemail talked about the order of grabbing butt cheeks and wiping face. I recently had an incident. I was on the road doing the Chop Top Challenge, and I was down to the last dude wipe, and I had my face, my hands, and my gooch that I needed to kind of all wipe up. It'd been about 3 days since I had a shower. I've been jumping in and out of lakes. Things were getting a little bit ripe sitting in the car in like waterproof gear. I was so excited because I had an itch down there to get that wiped up first that I did that first. And then I realized I hadn't done my face or my hands.
No.
But it's 2-sided, and I figure it's got like a, kind of a sanitizing coating in it. It should be okay.
No.
I wanted to get your opinion on that as a person who's been out in the field, in the shit.
Yeah, see, here's the problem. Technically, I'd say yes, there is some membrane separation, but I guarantee once you wipe the gooch, you brought it up to your face, you smelled it.
Yeah.
You smelled the gooch.
Yeah.
Yeah, that for me, that would ruin the whole freshness. The freshness is the experience. I would have gone into a gas station and maybe taken a handful of water, done something other than reuse that gooch towel.
Yeah, but I was at camp.
Mm.
Yeah.
Nobody had any? You couldn't borrow one?
No, I mean, I was the guy with them. I gave them out, and then I realized,
Ooh.
oh no, I'm down to the last one. No one else was thinking along those lines.
Man,
so when you're out there, when you were in the Delta Force, and you spent the week out there or whatever in the field, did you guys have wipes?
Yeah. So when I was in the Mekong Delta, I use my baby wipes. Yeah, whatever you hump, you can use. So it's your fault for not bringing enough. But yeah, you'd use baby wipes. You'd use anything you could when you don't get a shower. But after about 2 weeks, you don't miss it that much. The clothes become self-starched with your salt. It's right after when you go from fresh and then the first couple days of being sweaty, wet, miserable, insects. Those are the tough ones.
Well, if you're still listening after all of that, Face Off is a 1997 action sci-fi film starring John Travolta and Nicolas Cage as an FBI agent and a terrorist, respectively, who undergo an experimental surgery to swap their faces and, in the process, their identities. The film co-stars Joan Allen and Gina Gershon and features Nick Cassavetes and Thomas Jane in supporting roles. Face Off was the first Hollywood film in which director John Woo was given major creative control and earned critical acclaim for performances by Cage and Travolta and stylized action sequences. The film earned $245 million worldwide, making it the 11th highest grossing film of 1997, and was nominated for the Academy Award for Sound Effects Editing at the 70th Academy Awards. Since its release, Face Off gained a strong cult following and is considered by many as one of John Woo's best films. So my favorite film of the 90s, Pulp Fiction. And after Pulp Fiction came out in 94, we started seeing John Travolta in a lot of darker roles. He did Broken Arrow. I think it's another John Woo movie. Thin Red Line, Battlefield Earth, White Man's Burden, and this one, Face Off. And I know I saw them all. We all saw them all. But this is the one that really sticks out in my memory because of how off the wall his character and the plot were. And when Frank commissioned this movie, I thought, surely, even though it's a Frank commission, it can't be as weird as I remember. But no, it really was that weird.
Yeah, it's a weird time. And it's weird to get these stars together. We did Tango and Cash. And you think, how do you get these stars together? And the 90s were a weird time for film and for their careers, particularly. You mentioned Travolta with Pulp Fiction. Nicolas Cage had the exact same thing happen, I think, 2 years later with The Rock.
Right.
We think of them today as like big stars. But back then, neither of these two guys were considered action stars or even like rugged leading men type. Overnight, that seemed to change. They used to do, because I went back and I pulled it up. They were usually in like goofy comedies or romantic comedies. They were borderline just regular run-of-the-mill actors, no blockbuster stars. So if you think 80s and even late 70s Travolta, he was like in Grease. He was singing Saturday Night Fever. Urban Cowboy was I think it was an acclaimed hit. Then you had things like Staying Alive. Look Who's Talking. His career is bottoming out. He's not a leading man. Yes, he looked fantastic and perfect with those hip gyrations. He looked good, yes, but he's not a badass. He's doing Look Who's Talking 2 and The Eyes of an Angel. And then all of a sudden, Pulp Fiction, boom. Now he's in Get Shorty. He's a badass. Broken Arrow, badass. He does Michael and Phenomenon, whatever. You got to get paid. He does Face Off, badass. He's like a credible like action star. And the same thing with Nicolas Cage. He did Peggy Sue Got Married. We liked him. Raising Arizona, weird, Moonstruck. So then he gets an Academy Award for Leaving Las Vegas. And then all of a sudden he pivots. He's badass. The Rock, Con Air, Face Off, Snake Eyes, 8mm. This shit was a time where these guys transformed their careers.
Big D mentioned this was a weird time for film, in action films in particular. Also a weird time for trailers. I noticed during Con Air's trailer, very little explanation of what's going on. It was like one-liners and music. And I think we're about to get some of the same. Let's roll the trailer.
I've been chasing this guy ever since I joined the force. He has no conscience, and he shows no remorse. He's the mastermind behind numerous bombings and political assassinations. He has a felony list a mile long: murder, arson, kidnapping, terrorism, you name it. He's the most dangerous and brilliant criminal mind I've ever known. For years, I've been watching him, tracking him, studying his every move. I know his every mannerism, facial tick, gesture. I know him better than he knows himself. And now, after all this time, I finally figured out a way to trap him. I will become him. If I live.
You're not having any fun, are you, Sean? Try terrorism for hire. We'll blow some stuff up. It's more fun.
Plan B. Let's just kill each other.
FBI agent Sean Archer survives an assassination attempt by Castor Troy that accidentally kills Archer's son. 6 years later, Archer tracks Castor Troy and his brother Pollux to a remote desert airstrip. Sound familiar? In the ensuing firefight, Troy kills several of Archer's agents and goads Archer by saying he has planted a bomb in Los Angeles. Before Archer can learn more, Castor Troy is knocked unconscious and falls into a coma. So the opening scene of Face Off, we see Castor Troy. It's Nicolas Cage in a creepy mustache, and he's aiming and shooting Sean Archer, John Travolta, using a scoped rifle. Castor Troy clearly sees Archer is holding what? His little son. He decides to shoot Archer through the chest, and then, oh no, it's an accident. He killed his son. But I'm not so sure. This is a global terrorist. He's using a sniper rifle. I'm assuming he understands the ballistics of a 7.62 round at least as well as I do. Just an amateur firearm aficionado, right? That round at that range, I mean, he's what, Big D, 100 yards, maybe? It's likely to go through the body intact the whole round. So I don't understand why Castor Troy, all of a sudden he's like, oh, he seems shocked when little Michael ends up dead. Did I misread this scene, Big D? Was it a surprise or was he trying to kill both of them?
I didn't understand why he was surprised. The mustache, yes. He's sipping a soda. I wasn't sure if he was the good guy or the bad guy. I didn't remember which one was going to be the cop. So I thought maybe this was actually the agent who was watching, and Travolta was the terrorist with his son. But yeah, he acts very surprised. And the tone of the scene is weird. They're riding a carousel. So you got Travolta. There's no dialogue. He's smiling. He's putting his son onto the horse. It was a montage very close to. Do you remember Arnold in Commando?
Mm-hmm.
When he has Alyssa Milano and they're out in the woods and they're petting and feeding deer. They're playing like ice cream like games where they're like rubbing it on each other's noses and they're giggling. It's saccharine sweet. The music is like uplifting. It's a little blurry, like effect on the screen, and immediately the shot goes through his back. The sun is down. It's a horror show. And I'm thinking there's no way they're going to show this kid. They really don't show dead kids often. They went there. Kid's on the ground. He's bloody. And then you get Castor's up there like sipping his soda, walks away in plain sight. He doesn't care much. And Travolta does one of those like looking up at the sky like, why? Very weird opening.
Speaking of going there, we just reviewed Con Air, a movie that featured more than 30 deaths of police officers or soldiers. but most of them were off screen. They were like implied. They told you about somebody who died, or you saw the body, but you never really saw the guy get killed, or it was a split second shot. You didn't really get to see a lot. It was fairly uneventful. That in no way prepared me for what we were about to see in Face Off. John Woo, like, he seems to really enjoy spectacular cop deaths. There's an airport standoff scene in which I noticed one of the agents, he's got wires attached to his body. Like, he comes into the shot with wires attached to it, and I thought, oh, no way. Like, no way they're going to have a cop getting blasted by a shotgun and flying through the air. Turns out, way.
Yeah.
Like, pretty soon we got officers blasting through the sky. We got officers getting blown up. They're falling off of platforms. Like, this movie is fucking wild.
And he doesn't give us most of the police officers' names. So that's a dead giveaway. When it is just a bunch of red shirts, you see like all these police cars, all these officers. When the mayhem breaks out, I'm like, okay, shit. I don't know who these people are, but they're fucking going down. They're being killed. And the timing of this movie, I think it's perfect. We did Con Air last week, and it gives you perspective. It let me have a comparison, because I'm thinking, Con Air, we talked about, it's full of bad guys. You got Diamond Dog, you got Garland Green, you got Billy Bedlam. Of course, you got Cyrus the Virus, right? Within 10 minutes, I'm like, shit, is Castor Troy better than any of those? He's more fun. You know, Cyrus, great, but is he memorable and enjoyable like this? I don't think so, because within the first few minutes, Nicolas Cage has got that zany kind of wild energy. You don't know what he's going to do. He could do those weird facial reactions, and we know everything about this character within a minute. He comes out, he's strutting in slow motion, dueling golden pistols. He's got his wood box of treats and drugs and cigarettes. He's strutting around screen. He's peacocking the trench coat in slow motion. He's walking around through the convention center when he puts the bombs, and he's singing Hallelujah dressed as a priest. He's twerking in front of a choir of girls. He's twirling his hips, his head. He's singing. He grabs one of the girls' ass. He's charismatic with the ladies. The guys are afraid of him. He is a fantastic villain, and he's got to be right up there. The only one I could think of that I enjoyed as much, but I don't know if again, it could be blurry, was Simon Phoenix from Demolition Man. Was that character was so over the top, you couldn't stop looking at him, and I have to put Castor Troy up there with him.
Normally, I would dismiss this treatment as style over substance, right? As you mentioned, like all the vibrant colors, the slow motion, there's always like wind blowing in from somewhere.
Everywhere.
And it is style over substance, but John Woo and Nicolas Cage, like I respect it. They're going full measure here. And yes, Castor Troy, he's got important things to do. He's about to take off. You know, maybe if he would have gotten off the airstrip a little bit sooner, like he would have had so much trouble with the FBI. But he's not going to give up his horribly 90s eyewear or that Mr. Rogers. He does a full outfit change on the runway. He can't wear what he arrived in. He's got to put on his flying suit, apparently. It's like cool leisure suit. And when he shoots that undercover agent on the aircraft and then like tosses her lifeless body onto the runway, he looks directly at the cops like, oops. You know, this little shrug. I'm officially a Castor Troy fan. He's got so much pizzazz.
Oh, and his charisma with the flight attendant who's an undercover agent. He says, if I were to send flowers, he goes, instead, if I put my tongue out, would you suck on it? And she sucks on it. He's got some charisma. He's there. And this action scene you're describing, Gene, this might be the mostest action we've ever seen. We went from like Michael Bay to last week with Simon West, and it was crazy. John Woo takes it up another level. I didn't think it was even possible. Michael Bay had this influence in this time where people said, let's do some beautiful scene. Let's get the golden hour, explosions, slow-mo. Let's get some actors who maybe were a little past or a little down at that time. We could get them cheap. Let's create an action hit for the summer. And John Woo says, shit, I'm going to take this formula to the next level. Michael Bay does 10 explosions. Shit, I'm going to do 100. John Woo takes this initial chase. There's a Humvee, okay, that matches last week. We're doing a chase down a runway in a Humvee. 10 cars? No, 50 police cars. A helicopter. 100 SWAT officers. They're chasing this plane down the runway. They're trying to ram it off the runway. You have Sean Archer's in a helicopter, flying with one hand, leaning out of the window with the other hand, shooting at the cockpit. You have Castor shoots the pilot. Then they shoot the engine out. It careens off. It crashes into a hangar. It explodes. There is slow motion diving, slow motion driving, slow motion like reloads, slow motion trench coats, bullets, guns falling to the floor, sideways jumps. They're shooting. This made Con Air and Simon West look restrained. That's almost impossible to do.
They're also playing chicken. There's a scene where they're playing chicken between a car and an airplane. So Archer and Tito, they're in the car. Castor Troy's in the airplane with the pilot and Pollux Troy and then the undercover agent. Mm-hmm. Hypothetically, you got a runway, there's a car and an airplane, and they're going to crash during takeoff. It is dangerous for everybody. It's dangerous for the occupants of the car. You're crashing into a fucking jet that's going pretty fast. It's dangerous for the occupants of a plane because they're not really made to withstand a car crash, especially on the ground. Archer knows that. He is still speeding toward the plane. So we've got to assume that his game plan is that plane is going to shut down, it's going to veer off, or it's going to crash into us. Those are the possible outcomes. We learn later in the movie, Archer does not care about living. Okay. After his son died, after Michael died, he doesn't care about living. He just wants to get the guy. They're going toward each other. There's maybe 30 feet between them. And he sees Agent Winters, the undercover agent. She's being held hostage on the flight. And then he veers off. You knew she was on the plane. That was the whole plan. You guys put her there. Just think a little bit, Sean Archer. What do you think is going to happen if they successfully take off and she's in the plane? You think she's going to survive that flight? You think she's going to be okay? No, slamming into the aircraft gives you the best chance of success. You're going to hit the landing gear. You're going to hit the engine. It's game over for Castor Troy. They're tactically dumb.
But you keep saying car, Gene. This isn't a car. This is like an armored up original OG Hummer. This thing is hardened. If I'm going to hit a plane, and it wasn't going full speed, Gene, because he chickens out, he turns to the side, is able to do a full turn, get back into the chase, come up behind, and all the other police are like, back off, let's follow Archer's lead. This airplane is made out of really thin aluminum. You could have knocked this thing over if the police had just like tried to hit it with their regular squad cars. This wasn't exactly Bad Boys, where they're in a convertible Porsche. Yeah, ram the fucker.
Also, listeners, if you're like, oh, you guys are overanalyzing this, you're doing a movies podcast. No, I guarantee you, Big D and I could be sitting in the theater watching this movie for the first time, and I go, why don't you just fucking hit the plane? What do you think is going to happen if it gets to take off?
Silly.
So Archer secretly undergoes surgery to take on Castor Troy's face, voice, and appearance. He is taken to the same high-security prison where Pollux Troy is being held, manages to convince Pollux that he is Castor Troy, and he gains information on the bomb's location. The real Castor Troy unexpectedly awakens from his coma and forces Dr. Timothy Walsh to transplant Archer's face onto him. He then kills the only people other than Archer who know of the transplant and surprises Troy as Archer in prison. So this is the big scene in the movie. We get the surgery.
I got to ask you this, Gene, before we go any further.
Yeah.
Going forward, how are we going to talk about these characters? Will we say Travolta or Cage? Or are we going to what are we going to do?
Archer as Troy and Troy as Archer. Troy as Archer would be Castor Troy with Archer's face on him. And Archer as Troy is Sean Archer with Castor Troy's face on him.
I don't know if I can do that. I really don't think I can.
Well, how is he going to do it? If you say the actor's name, you don't know at what point in the movie they're playing themselves.
If I say Nicolas Cage, at this point, you know that they're switching. So Nicolas Cage is...
Yeah, he's Archer as Troy.
Oh, fuck. Okay, we'll see how this goes. We're gonna go with that.
Well, Frank mentioned how good the 3D printed ear looked in this movie. And overall, I agree. The face-off surgery, it's pretty good for 1997. I don't have any issues with the effects that they use, but I do have to raise some questions about the procedure. First, why did they cut Archer's face off first? The surgery here is they're taking Castor Troy, who is in a coma. They're going to take his face off and they're going to put it on Sean Archer. We don't really care about Castor Troy. First of all, he's in a coma. Second of all, he's a criminal. Who cares, right? I feel like it would make more sense to harvest Nicolas Cage's face, Castor Troy's face first. Make sure nothing goes wrong, right? You're cutting off some nerves, some tendons and stuff like that. Get that off first before you take the face off the FBI agent and then just put it in like an illuminated display case. They're giving him a haircut during this surgery. Like he's on the operating table and they're cutting their hair. It seems like maybe the sequence that you do is you take Castor Troy's face off first, then you take Archer's face off, you put Castor Troy's face on Archer, let him heal up a little bit, and then on his way out the door while he's like watching TV or something, then you give him a haircut.
But I was thankful they didn't do both faces initially. I was like, why are they going to put the face on him where they're going to put it back? So thankfully, when it was sitting there in the little back to tank where it was floating there, and then, like Red Skull, they're going to put the face on him. I thought it made sense. And they use like bullshit medical words that just hand wave it. They're like, this is a state-of-the-art morphogenic template. I'm like, shit, okay. It works. Let's go. But it's gross. It is so gross. There is this squishy, like, as they're pulling the face around, and the body horror scene where they put the Nicolas Cage face on and they start sliding it around. It is absolutely disgusting. And this is mixed in, Gene, with some computer generated like interfaces that rival hackers. Everything is like a graphic representation. If it is a bomb that's about to go off, it's going to be a naked anime girl with her boobs out being like, ready to blow. There's going to be like schematics of the bomb. All the computer like animation, it's fantastic. When you disarm a bomb, it's going to boobs out. They're going to be like, oh, it's safe, right? But did you stop and read some of the profiles of the cases that pop up momentarily, Gene?
I just want to point out that this is the second episode now where Big D has stopped and read. We had Con Air. What's his parole say? Now you
need to.
Wow.
You need
never say this man is the hardest working man in show business.
Gene, not only do the displays look good, but they taunt the characters in such mean, unnecessary ways. So when it comes up, Michael Archer, the son who's dead, and it comes up momentarily, it says, carousel sniper victim murdered 9 September 91. Damage report. You could just say he died of wound. No, the boy died in the arms of his father, FBI agent Sean Archer, on the carousel in Griffin Park. Castor Troy had intended to kill Sean Archer, but the bullet traveled through him and struck Michael in the chest.
Wow.
That's a lot of taunting details, right? And then when it goes into the other cases, like the car bombing of an informant in June 93, the body burned beyond recognition. Head was separated from the body mass. Identity confirmed through dental records. Tattoo of KDI on his chest. It goes into like the computer here is quite vivid.
I feel like there's this cottage industry of people who put their heart and soul into writing copy and visuals that are never going to be noticed by anyone but you, Big D. I think about this every time I'm playing a video game. I always skip the cutscenes. You'll collect dossiers and stuff in games now, and I'm just like, don't care, want to shoot something. There are people who work very hard on this, and I think that maybe we should be paying closer attention.
You should, because think of like when you're working graphically or doing ads, they always have that template, like that fake Latin that you plug in.
Lorem ipsum.
Yes, why would you use that for some of these screens? Go in there, have fun. Maybe it'll be seen, maybe it won't, but I appreciate the effort. It really did. It did make the difference here. But to go back to the case, Gene, right? So now we've got this bomb, beautiful design.
Gorgeous.
It's in the convention center.
Thermal shielding.
Thermal shielding. It is a work of art that belongs in the Louvre. It's a problem. So they have to somehow find out where this bomb is. But the police don't seem to exhaust any of their options. They land on the most ridiculous plan right away. They find this revolutionary surgery. They get him to not tell his wife or any of his loved ones. Why not? Why can't you tell your wife, hey, listen, go to your sister's house, go to the lake, just don't tell anybody if anything happens here, whatever. They go with option crazy right off the bat. Why don't they use force? They're not exactly being the kindest police. He puts a gun to a witness's head right away. One of the other officers takes a lit cigarette out and puts it on Troy's arm while he's unconscious. Why don't you take his brother, give him some hallucinogens, torture him a bit, get some information, do anything. It worked on the other guy, so you know the bomb is going to go off on the 18th. You have so many options. Evacuate the city. Why not do that? Check out the major attractions. And when he brings this up to the boss, to the head guy of the bureau, he says, we're not going to clear the city on a hunch. This isn't a hunch. He's got schematics. He's got a date. This is pretty much, he's got a 3D rendered version of the bomb. Let's evacuate the city.
Now, I understand why Archer is not supposed to tell his wife, because if she were to leave town or something like that, it might blow his cover. Like, it would seem a little bit odd. You want everything to go the same, or you don't want her to know, because we see later in the movie, if she had been informed, then she would have accidentally let it slip to Troy as Archer. The identities have been switched. But here's an idea that I've learned from Arrested Development. Leave a note. Tell her, hey, take this note, put it in this safe, in this lockbox, something like that. If anything strange should happen, go read the note. If you're ever unsure about who I am or something, go read the note. Some sort of hint there. But Big D, you're absolutely right. Use of force seems to be the key here. We know that the Troy brothers are being taken to this prison. It's a special prison. No one knows about it. And they can do whatever the fuck they want there, right? Pollux Troy, he's not a tough guy. We see that he's pretty fragile psychologically and physically. You wheel his comatose brother out there, you start cutting off body parts until he talks, maybe start with the face, you're going to get an answer.
Dude, he's on meds to begin with.
Yeah.
We don't know if it's some kind of psychological drugs, whether it's for pain, whether it's for an illness. Withhold the drugs. Mix up some cocktail, you could give it to him. And the twist of this prison, this futuristic prison, it was a nice twist for me. I was not expecting it. I thought this was going to be more like Tango and Cash, a traditional out of control, blood in, blood out prison where they're going to be like fighting Kumite style in the courtyard for survival. But no, this is a black ops. The Geneva Convention doesn't exist here. Amnesty International doesn't know this. There's no lawyers here, Gene. This is the perfect prison.
Could you imagine if it was a Con Air prison and you just got the two Troy brothers just hanging out, learning Spanish, eating snowballs together?
Hey, did I tell you I'm going to go meet my daughter? I haven't seen my daughter. I'm getting out this month. Yeah, she's going to be 8 years old. Did I tell you I'm a donde está la biblioteca? I learned Spanish in prison. No, instead, they get this crazy ass experimental electrotherapy, shock treatment. They got these cool ass like magnetic boots. There's surveillance. It's cool. It's cool. And when they're going to break out, I'm thinking there's going to be some big plan. He's going to maybe, let's say the Rock style. They're going to find some plan. They're going to map it out. There's no strategy, Gene. He just decides once one of the guys says, hey, if you get your boots off when they go do the therapy, he immediately gets a cigarette, hits the guard, no plan. He ends up in the electroshock therapy table. And he thankfully can recover the other guy who he thought he had a sex sandwich with the wife and the sister, but has the constraint of not wanting to kill the police officers. Tons of cops are dying everywhere else, but he is a police officer. He's an agent. He can't do it. There's no way he's escaping just winging people in the legs, the thighs, the arms, or spraying them with acid. This dude has his hand set. There is no way he is getting anywhere near one of the exit gates.
I mean, beyond the fact that there's no like safe way to shoot people, let's just get that misnomer out of the way, right? You can kill a person by winging them. Like, it can happen. But technically, as you mentioned, Big D, Dubov, he killed 6 guards. And I hold Sean Archer responsible for that.
Hold on. Did you count those?
Yeah.
Don't get on me for reading screenshots about the torture. You're counting the guards killed.
Well, yeah, I mean, because I wanted to know how many people is he going to let get killed. So, okay, fair enough. How bad was that helicopter? So he gets out of the prison. He realizes, oh no, I'm on this platform in the middle of the fucking ocean, but apparently really, really close to California. You got a shoeless man. He's blinded he hasn't seen sunlight in days. He comes out, he's like, oh shit, I can't see anything. Chopper comes in. They've got automatic weapons. How are you not shooting this guy? Why are you flying around like there's anti-aircraft fire? They're swooping and swerving. And then when he jumps in the water, I guess they're like, All right, well, guess he's gone. They didn't wait for him to surface. You're in a helicopter. Hover.
Maybe this was like Con Air. We've never considered the possibility of someone escaping. They never thought that could happen, Gene. You can't come up with a contingency plan. You've got magnetic shoes. What are they going to do?
Big D, you mentioned Dubov and the sex sandwich. So for those who haven't seen the movie in a while, Sean Archer, he's in Castor Troy's face. He's in prison. He gets attacked for reasons unknown by a guy named Dubov. Okay, Dubov is played by Chris Bauer, the beloved Frank Sabatka, may he rest in peace, from The Wire. And Pollux Troy tells Archer as Troy, he's like, oh, that attack was because you had a sex sandwich with Dubov's wife and sister. And again, Big D, the theme of this episode, attention to detail. I said, what? I only know of two things that are called a sex sandwich, okay? The most obvious one, two dudes hitting it from the front and back at the same time, okay? Sex sandwich, makes sense. Two dudes, one chick. The other one, the lesser known sex sandwich, is missionary, but when you put your arms like behind the knees, so you're like kind of pinning the legs up. I don't understand how you have a sex sandwich with two women and a man, and I want to know exactly what happened with Dubov's wife and sister.
So I'm thinking it could be a scenario of maybe side-by-side skiing.
Okay.
So you have Troy. It's original Troy. Original Troy is on his back, sister and the wife on either side, making out, stroking him, going down on him. Or maybe it was a fellatio and anal stimulation. Maybe there was ass eating plus the other one blowing him. There's a lot of scenarios where it's like the human centipede that you could think that they could get some kind of sandwich, or maybe also a hot dog is a sandwich. Maybe there was something with a bun, and I don't know.
Maybe the theme of the episode just changed from attention to detail to more body horror. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I think maybe it was more metaphorical, sex sandwich, and less literal.
Also, there's a possibility that like Pollux doesn't strike. He might be an incel. And so he just threw out the term sex sandwich, but doesn't actually know what the fuck it means. That kid does not look like he's been laid.
That's very true. Yeah, that's sad. He must have been like cucked. He was probably sitting on the side watching something. Oh, yeah. Poor guy.
Pollux is freed from prison, and Troy, as Archer, disarms the bomb, earning admiration from the FBI office and becoming close to Archer's wife, Eve, and Archer's daughter, Jamie. Archer, disguised as Troy, escapes prison and retreats to actual Castor Troy's headquarters, where he meets Sasha and her son, Adam. And he discovers that Adam is Castor Troy's son. So then Troy, who's disguised as Archer, he finds out that Archer, who's disguised as Troy, escapes, and he hastily assembles a team to raid Castor Troy's headquarters, which is his headquarters, but his headquarters that is being occupied by Sean Archer, who is disguised as him.
See, Gene, so simple.
Yeah.
So simple. Clear. Everybody knows what's going on. I'm going to keep it simple because I'm talking about Archer, John Travolta's character, from the beginning, whether or not he's wearing his own face and skin or he's wearing Castor Troy and Nicolas Cage's face. As a father, I understand the carousel tragedy in the beginning. It's traumatic. I understand what he's going through. He likes the scar on his chest because he remembers the moment. They go have that annual visit to the cemetery. It's painful. His child was killed. But this dude, he has become unbearable. He's whiny. He's needy. He's unlikable. There's a scene later in the movie where Troy, he has the big victory. He comes in, and his coworkers give him, felt to me was like a sarcastic, like slow clap and like double thumbs up. This dude is miserable. He's melodramatic. Everyone he talks to, they're like, hey, good job, Archer. He's like, I don't want to trust $1 billion satellite, okay? I would trust a $10 snitch at this point. Everybody's like, oh, Archer, calm the fuck down. Everything he does, he has the surgery, and he falls on the ground. He's like, oh, my face. And he's crying. He's like pawing at his face. Anytime this dude sees a mirror, he goes through the same episode of self-loathing. He has this existential crisis. He is in a loveless marriage. This dude is lost. He walks around. We said about cucked. The brother was cucked. This dude is cucked. The date nights fail. The wife doesn't care about him. He's miserable to be around. I feel bad for everybody in this dude's life. Everyone must be like, oh, God, I fucking hate Archer. What? Honey, I'm not going over. We're not doing dinner with them again. You know what he's going to do. He's going to look at that family photo of his son. He's going to cry. He's going to drink too much wine. Eve is going to complain. We're going to go home. Nobody wants to be around this guy.
To be clear, dear listeners, we're not complaining about the movie at this point. We just really don't like this guy.
Oh, he's fucking unlikable.
Because this is entirely intentional, right? Imagine if we had an FBI agent who was like exciting and every bit as full of charisma as the terrorist he was tracking down, right? You put like a weirdo like Michael Shannon or somebody with a lot of charm like Mel Gibson in that role. It would just be too much. You can't have that plus Castor Troy, right? You got to have a little bit of vanilla so you can appreciate your fudge, baby.
No, but I like your Mel Gibson comparison, right? We meet Mel Gibson in the trailer. He's a drunk. He's failed. He's about to kill himself. He's down, but he's not pathetic.
Right.
Archer is pathetic. Both of these actors, they're accomplished. They've both been nominated for an Academy. You have Nicolas Cage as one, but they're very different actors. And it's interesting to watch how they play each other because they're very different. And I think, without a doubt, if I had to vote, I would say Nicolas Cage does a better job of playing Travolta than Travolta playing Cage. Because Nicolas Cage, he goes to a level that Travolta just cannot reach. Travolta plays a melancholy Travolta version of himself when he is playing Archer. And then when he tries to play Troy, he's playing more of like a Pulp Fiction type. That's the actor he seems to be playing. They're not comparable. And the scene that impressed me the most, where you could really see Nicolas Cage stretching, he gets out of prison, he meets the gang, he gets his box with the drugs, the gum, the cigarettes. You can see he's conflicted, he's confused, he's taking drugs. Probably not a good idea while you're having this body dysmorphic change and the surgery and all that. But he looks like Travolta. He has the mannerisms, the vocal pattern. He pulls it off where Travolta, I don't know if he's that good.
Yeah, there's a reason why Nicolas Cage is the subject of so many memes. This guy, you see it and you never forget it, right? He leaves an unforgettable impression in nearly every role, and I think doubly so as Castor Troy. He's almost to action dramas what Jim Carrey is to comedy. Like, he's an actor who's going 100%. He doesn't worry about looking weird. In fact, that's kind of the point. And he doesn't worry about the fact that people are going to be laughing at him for the next 27 years, right? He's just going to do it. There's a scene in the prison where he's beating the shit out of Dubov, stomping on him, hitting him with the tray. And the guy is like on, death's door there. Dubov's having a really bad week. And the people are cheering. The crowd's going crazy. And you can see Nicolas Cage as Archer, who's carrying around all this pain, who's carrying around all this confusion. It's cathartic in a way. He doesn't get to, as an FBI agent, do this sort of thing. He's letting all this pain and this rage out. And he's alternating between cheering and crying because he's getting all this out. And he doesn't want to be that guy. He doesn't want to be Castor Troy, who killed his son and ruined his life, but also he's kind of feeling a little bit like Castor Troy. There's a lot going on. He is absolutely out of his mind. It's terrific.
And he's struggling. What does he do in front of the other prisoners? What does he do in front of his brother? And he slowly starts out screaming, I'm Castor Troy. Wait, I'm Castor Troy. And he's embodying the character. I thought it was wonderful. It was really good and disappointing that Travolta couldn't match that energy.
Now, despite really enjoying this movie, I got to say that the writers, this is some really pedestrian shit. They got to step it up. Okay. I imagine that this writing room, they just learned about foreshadowing in like 6th grade English, and they were just dying to use it. They're like, okay, there's this voice chip. And the doctor's like, make sure to say, okay, don't make sure it doesn't get hit really hard because then it won't function correctly and it'll just keep going back and forth. And they're like, oh, blood type. Well, just so you know, your blood type's different than his, but no one's really going to care about that. It'll be okay. There's a butterfly knife. Okay, if a guy tries to get fresh with you, you stab this directly into his name and you turn it. Jamie, early on in the movie, why is she dressing up like a goth? Oh, she's struggling with her identity. Every event in Face Off is betrayed by telegraphed developments. You've already told me how the second half of the movie goes based on what happened in the first half, and it's absolutely unnecessary. Sometimes foreshadowing helps the movie out, but each of these developments could have just occurred, right? He gets hit in the throat, his voice chip stops working. Okay, makes sense. He's talking to his wife, who is a doctor, and says, why don't you check the blood type? That makes sense. You don't need somebody to tell you that. A butterfly knife, if he just gave it to her and she stabbed a guy because he was holding her hostage, it totally makes sense. It wasn't necessary.
See, but I wonder how much of this is language and how much of this is culture and the history of John Woo, because he was directing in Hong Kong, and the movies he was famous for, it was style over substance. It was action. It was fast paced. It was fight scenes. I think it may be those types of movies. You need to put those little nuggets in because there's no time for them to develop organically. And maybe it was because it was in English. He was worried. Are people going to pick up on this? I don't know. You know, it's like my mother or even Vanessa. English is not their first language. Sometimes humor or sarcasm, they don't always have a good grasp on. So I wonder if that was an issue with it.
He wasn't used to having 2 hours and 20 minutes to do a movie.
No, he wasn't able to develop a plot. You know, when people are running around kicking each other, you know, you have to be like, hey, get to the car. Oh, the bomb is in the car. Okay, get to the car. Oh, okay, I'm Castor Troy. I'm Castor Troy. But you got to be more economical with your plot development.
The Dick Ebert edit. Face Off. It's 15 minutes long. The raid turns into a bloodbath, and Pollux, many FBI agents, and several members of Troy's gang are killed, while Archer, Sasha, and Adam are able to escape. Troy, as Archer, kills his supervisor and makes it look like a heart attack, getting a promotion to acting director. Archer, as Troy, approaches Eve and convinces her to test Troy as Archer's blood to prove his identity. After testing the blood and being convinced of her husband's identity, Eve tells Archer as Troy that Troy as Archer will be vulnerable where? At an FBI funeral.
A lot going on there, Gene.
Yeah.
A lot. But the character I want to focus on is very important because in a film full of, let's just say, not the smartest people doing dumb things and not thinking things through, Eve is a breath of fresh air. Eve is a smart woman. Eve is Archer's wife. She is an acclaimed surgeon, capable mother. You know, even though the daughter's having an existential problem, you know, because her brother was killed, understandable. She's aware. She's not oblivious. She immediately notices there's difference about her husband, who's normally like walking around crying or weak and just walking around sulking and just, I'm going to go upstairs and sleep. She's like, okay, who is this confident man? Walks in, sweeps her off his feet, takes her upstairs, makes passionate love to her. She knows something is different. She asks, maybe it's because he closed the case. Something's going on. The loveless marriage. Now suddenly there's passion. It seemed like they had a good night. Like the next day, she's kind of rattled. She's suspicious. She knows something is up with her husband. She's not a fool. Do you think she liked it, Gene? Because I know it was a nice change of pace for her. Do you think she let her lust and loss of passion blind her to the fact that something nefarious was going on?
You would think that you haven't been laid in a while. You're kind of in a marriage where there's not a lot of fire, and then this guy comes along and he makes sweet love to you. You think that she'd be kind of like having a smile on her face, maybe getting up for breakfast a little bit earlier, and she does not seem any happier after they have sex.
But I think it was the timing. He couldn't have known that the next day was the anniversary of the son's death.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I didn't think about that.
So, Gene, the fact that she could go through that, if like, say you have a child who's killed, I don't know any mother or father that's going to be like, hey, let's light candles around the whole house. I'm going to take you upstairs and I'm going to eat your peach for hours. That's not going to happen. So the fact that he got her up there, she did it. It was wild. I think that is a testament to him. And he is so pathetic that at the end, when finally she gets her husband back and she lays on line, she says, you know what? You know, we were together. You know what that means? And Archer the cuck is like, yes, it's my fault. I shouldn't have let it happen. There's no doubt She knew something was up and she went with it. It was a bit of a change. So, Gene, you've been married now a year and a couple months, right?
It's almost a year since you were in my wedding, Big D.
Again, life is such a blur. If you were to switch bodies with someone, right?
Yeah.
And you came home, wouldn't you hope? Let's just say that your body was slightly different. You had been acting strange. The penis is never addressed. If it was a different penis than yours, don't you think or don't you hope that Sarah would notice?
I feel like my penis is different on different days. Wouldn't you agree? Like there's just some days where you're like, oh, it looks like that. And other days you're like, oh, it looks like this.
There would be subtle differences. Even if it had only been a couple months, I have to believe that Archer was a smaller dude than Troy. I think Troy would have been coming in there because he has BDE. He'd come in, he'd use it differently. If she was going down on him, she might be able to see a pattern in the veininess of it. I think there would be something you could notice.
So I have really bad memory when it comes to sex. Like I can't remember what sex was like with prior partners after like maybe like a year. And so if she's anything like me, then it would be like if they haven't done it in a couple months, she probably has a very foggy idea of what his dong looks like. But I'll flip the question around on you. Mm-hmm. Would you know your wife's vulva from other vulvas?
Oh, I could spot that. After 20 years, easily. In fact, that's my vulva. Yes, I'd know that one. Yeah, I would hope she would know my penis. I would hope so.
I think yours is pretty hard to miss.
I would hope she would.
At the funeral, Troy as Archer takes Eve hostage. Sasha arrives and saves Eve after taking a bullet. Jamie shoots and injures Archer as Troy, and Troy as Archer flees the church. Troy as Archer briefly takes Jamie hostage, but she escapes by stabbing him with a butterfly knife. Then Troy as Archer commandeers a speedboat, and a water chase ends in a boating accident. With their speedboats grounded, the men fight until Archer as Troy gains the upper hand. Troy as Archer attempts to mutilate his face to taunt and distract Archer as Troy, but Archer as Troy shoots him with a spear gun. After the face transplant surgery is reversed, Archer returns home, where he adopts Adam into his family.
In this podcast, I am without a doubt the one who likes the stupid movies. Yeah. I'm the Michael Bay Armageddon lover. I don't care that they're mining on an asteroid. As long as I have fun, I'm normally forgiving of films. But this film, Con Air pushed me, and I think this film broke me. The nonstop action, it's mind numbing. It's the worst part. I stopped watching the Fast and the Furious when they start driving like hypercars out of like Dubai skyscrapers and landing in another one, and the nonstop like rocket launchers and submarines and tanks, and it's too much. One scene at the end of this film pushed me, Gene. It broke me. The ridiculousness, it goes over the top. They disregard every basic law of physics. It's the final scene. Like you said, hey, where can we meet? At a funeral in a church where other law enforcement will be.
Right.
They get there. Castor comes like walking up the beach, sunset. I mean, he's the most like sought after fugitive in all of LA. He comes right out there. The fight starts. There's slow motion. There's doves, Gene. Doves flying through the cemeteries. They're fighting. There's smoke and candles and incantation. And it sounds like that. Da, da, da. What's that music?
Enigma.
Yes, it sounds like Enigma's playing. They're flickering candles. It's a full-blown Mexican standoff. I don't know if that's PC, but that's what it is. There's a Mexican standoff, then another person comes in, and another person comes in. You think this has to be it, Gene? This is the end. It's going to happen here. No, the fight spills out into the courtyard. Somebody gets stabbed in the leg. They start running down the street. More police officers are killed. Is it over, Gene? No, this leads to the water. It's never ending. They go down. There's a couple of cigarette boats, speedboats down on the dock. Castor gets in one in Archer's body. I got it there. He goes off. The boathouse explodes. There's now a cigarette boat dueling chase. One of them jumps through a police boat, which kills another 5 officers. It explodes. And now laws of physics go out the window. And this is one of John Woo's like signatures. Nicolas Cage is being dragged along the side of a cigarette boat. Let's say probably 70, 80 miles an hour. I don't know what that is in knots, maybe like 65 knots. Who knows? He's getting dragged. One-handed, he pulls himself up. He gets his feet under him. So now he is water skiing with shoes on, like dockers, on the side of a boat. He now gets on the boat. It crashes. They're going now together on the same boat, and they're going to hit land. It's a concrete boat ramp. I'm thinking they're going to slow down. They're going to jump off. No. They hit it at a full 60, 80 miles an hour. They hit the concrete. They're shot up in the air at 70, 80 miles an hour. The boat explodes. I'm thinking they got to be dead. They got to be knocked out, something. They land. They continue to fight, Gene. I'm mercifully thinking, please end. Please end. It doesn't end. They keep fighting. That spear gun, Gene. Archer tries to hold it. Troy in Archer tries to hold the bands with his bare hands. You're not physically going to stop a spear gun from going off. This felt like the last 20 minutes of Con Air, where they're on the fire truck driving down the strip. They hit the building. It explodes. I half expected the boat to jump out of the water and hit an armored car and shoot Cash in the air. The ending of this, it was mind-numbing. You can't tell me that you weren't having a bit too much at the end here.
When Archer finally shoots Troy with the spear gun, he screams like a man, die!
He
I felt that. I felt that. I was like, just fuck it, dude, just fucking die. But unlike you, I really love this blitz of action at the end. Boat through boat, dude, that's cool. Explosions, pretty cool. The part that bothered me was that Castor Troy in Archer's body, he kept giving up all the advantages of stolen identity, right? As you mentioned, it's a funeral for an FBI agent, and you know the other guy's there. You know the other guy's there, and he looks just like Castor Troy. I don't know. Maybe tell everybody at the church, hey,
yes,
Castor Troy's right there. We should probably get him. But even after that, he decides to come back on his own. And then he's rolling around with his own thugs, as opposed to, I don't know, FBI agents who work for you. He's got Jamie on his side. This is Archer's daughter, right? She doesn't know that they've done a fucking face swap. She believes him, but he takes her hostage anyway. Why run?
Well, I think he's afraid that somehow if the police capture him, that Archer in Troy's body could somehow convince them to do a blood test. He could somehow convince them. So he needs to kill him himself. He needs to somehow do death by cop.
Sure.
It's a big, complicated mess. This movie's 2 hours. It didn't need to be 2 hours. You knock this down to 145, you tighten it up, you take away the non-ending, running. And what makes it worse is they're using one of the songs from Speed. It sounds like dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Every time that came on, I was like, oh, fuck, I'm in for it now.
And a final thought, Big D. In a movie where people switch identities and struggle to gain trust, the most powerful weapon is the intimate secret. Maybe there's a little song that dad sang you. Maybe there's a family handshake or an inside joke. Or maybe your family does the super gross thing where they drag their hands across one another's faces. From the get-go in this movie, I was actively rooting against the Archer family because of this disgusting family tradition. If anyone in my family did that to me, we're not talking.
Once dad came out of the basement,
yeah,
when Archer wasn't crying or self-loathing, any interaction was probably positive. They're like, well, dad ran his hand across my face. Okay, well, at least he's not downstairs in sweatpants crying all day. But I got some other fucking questions, Gene, here. Now we're talking about Adam, right? Mm-hmm. He shows up with a child, a 10-year-old child who's in the system. He's got an ID. Mom is dead.
Yeah.
And he just brings them and pulls the sloth, where Chunk brings Sloth home to the parents, says, we're going to raise you. That's not how the law works, Archer. You can't take a child, just pick him up and take him home. And he looks at the wife like, shit, is this okay? You didn't bring home Chinese food, Archer. You brought home a child and says, oh, I'm going to show you your new room. You're going to live up here. This kid's damaged. He just watched his mother get shot in her apartment.
Also, have the fortitude to kill that kid. Eye for an eye.
Yeah. I mean, I understand you got to bookend it, but this kid's traumatized. At some point, he's going to, and that would have been the sequel.
Yeah.
This kid realizes who his dad was. You know, dad really didn't die with the spear gun. Maybe now the kid swaps body with the daughter. Who knows? Who knows what they could go? But I'm left with one last question, Gene. And we didn't get to it earlier on. How they're going to do the body change, right? And they're going to make everything accurate. Why in the end, when they turned Travolta, Archer back, why did they give him his belly fat back? Why did they make him a fat bastard again? Why didn't they let him keep the Nicolas Cage six-pack? That was unfair, I thought.
More cushion for the pushing, baby.
Yeah. Did you also pick up on the most accurate and ironic casting in Hollywood history?
I did not.
Did you pick up who the actor was who sexually assaulted the daughter?
No, who was that?
Picked it up right away. It was Danny Masterson.
Who's that?
That's the guy from that 70s show, the one who's in prison.
Oh.
Yes, he plays the boyfriend.
Wow.
Who sexually assaults her. I was like, is that Danny Masterson? Yes, it was. That should have told you something, people.
Yeah, apparently he didn't learn from getting his ass kicked by John Travolta.
He didn't learn.
Now's the time in the podcast we give our Shat score for Face Off. Our Shat score is our way of telling you how many wipes this movie would take to get off your respective butts. 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It's eating a peach for hours. And 5 wipes is an absolute disaster. It's being forced to listen to Somewhere Over the Rainbow on your Walkman while police shoot up your mom's apartment. Big D, we'll start with you. What is your Shat score for Face Off?
So as someone who likes dumb movies, I love Fuck Yeah, America, Red Dawn, Armageddon. I am no one to besmirch this film, but it is a matter of taste. I think that this film is like the candy corn of action film. 1 or 2 candy corn, I'm good with. I'm okay with it. I'll sit there. I'll enjoy it. It's why I stopped watching Fast and Furious. I don't want to see Dom in Cuba racing like backwards at 140 miles an hour, flames shoot out in a tank and driving a bank vault through the streets of Brazil, which was Puerto Rico. It's all dumb. It's too much. I wanted it to be over, but I can't deny it was a big turning point for both their careers. It's done well. They both bought in a competent director. So I feel torn. I think it is probably a better movie than I'm going to give it a score for, but for me, it wasn't my taste. So I think it's 2.75 wipes. It's a little worse than average. I'm more the Con Air, Armageddon, Michael Bay type stuff.
I'm going to fall on the opposite side of the fence there, Big D, but I understand your reasons. I love this movie the same way I loved Highlander 2, for the reason that it is a spectacle, whether intentional or not. I could not turn away from it. I did not know what was going to happen next, other than the stuff that was foreshadowed. Nicolas Cage is just doing things that will forever be ingrained in my memory. I don't know that John Woo is my guy as a director, but I do know that this movie was deeply enjoyable, hugely entertaining. I'm going to go 1.5 wipes.
I wish I had thought of something you said earlier before I watched the film that you pictured Frank. If I could have thought maybe watching this with Frank and the things he would have said, be like, oh yeah, Terry Hatcher, slow dance on bicycles. To this film, I think I would have enjoyed it more, but it's tough. It's tough. It just wasn't to my taste. So I apologize, Frank. So with that score of a 1.875 wipe, that now ties us alone in the 153 spot with First Blood. Slightly better than Detroit Rock City and Back to School. Slightly worse than Desperado and Fire in the Sky.
That's an honorable spot for a movie this silly and long.
But beloved.
I
think most people would have a positive memory of this film.
Well, that'll close up our most recent Nick Cage block. Thank you, Frank, so much for your commission. Big D, what do we have coming up next week?
Gene, next week, 2 former geeks become 80s punks, then party and go to a concert while deciding what to do with their lives. Commissioned by James L. Came out in 99. And this is a little smaller film than we're used to covering.
We're going from a box office of $200 million plus to about $300,000. So tiny film, big impression on my life coming up next week. Well, thank you, James, for the upcoming commission. Thank you, Frank, for commissioning Face Off. Thank you to all the commissioners who make this podcast possible. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. Email us, host@shatpod.com. Support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or by commissioning your own movie. Find all information by visiting our website, shatpod.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV. Review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all information on our website, shatpod.com/TV. We're everywhere fine podcasts to be found, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, and if you stop by Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. It helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-host, Big D, I'm Gene Lyons. Join us next time for the following movie.
I love living in the city!
Meet Steve-O and Bob. They were the only two punks living in Salt Lake City.
Ooh, we come from the East.
What the hell are you?
We're from England.
England.
That's probably why we seem so weird to you, man.
Their only way to understand the world was to be totally misunderstood. And when you're living in the most conservative city in America, do you A, conform?
This rebellion thing you're going through, I understand it, not completely, but I respect it.
B, learn to cope?
I am the future. I am the future of this great nation.
Steven, I didn't sell out, son. I bought in.
Or C,
Is he gonna be okay?
Oh, yeah, he'll be fine, I'm sure. Thank you, though.
none of the above?
I am Aladdin, and this is my lamp. I wished for you, and here you are.
Bob was in love.
You're like a poet, dude. I just started thinking, Salt Lake ain't that bad. I know, I mean, I know it sucks and all, but, this is like home,
Matthew Lillard, star of Scream and She's All That. And Michael Gorgon in a film about living life.
If I knew what was ahead of me, I may have stayed in bed. Life is like that.
Never have so many of Satan's followers been amassed on the earth as there are now.
What?
And getting out alive.
666. The mark will be on all of them.
Oh, my God!
With attitude.
I told you those boys were trouble.
What's your major gonna be?
I want to save the rainforest. Somebody's got to fight for them.
Salt Lake City Punk.